Hello and welcome everyone. Today in this session I'm going to discuss about the second unit of MMPC 17. So the second name of this unit it is corporate policy. So now let's move on to this. The first here given 2.2, that is concept and meaning of corporate policy. What is this corporate policy? So corporate policy here given management's expressed, okay, management's expressed or implied intent to govern action in the pursuit of the company's objectives. So here whatever it is the expressed or implied intent to govern the action in the pursuit of the company's objective, that is corporate policy. Okay, it is nothing but management's express or implied intent to govern the action. So whatever actions or whatever the process that it goes on in the organization to achieve, or you can say in the pursuit of a company's objectives, so those expressed or implied intent to govern action is corporate policy. So it helps the managers in identification of the solutions to the problem, so that it helps in the finding the solution of the problem. Then it provides the framework in which he has to take a decision. It also means corporate policy also provide the framework in which the manager has to take the decision. Then next here, view regarding corporate policies. So what different views are there regarding corporate policies? So strategy. So corporate policy policy and strategy are synonymous. So that is the first view. So let's see whether this view it is acceptable or not, or is there some kind of flaw in this view. So as you can see on the screen here, it is written strategy. What is this strategy? Strategy is the determination of basic long-term goals. What is this? Strategy is the determination of basic long-term goals and objectives of an enterprise, and allocation of resources necessary to carry out these goals. So what here given? Determination of basic long-term goals. Strategy first determines the basic long-term goals and objectives of an enterprise, and allocation of resources necessary to carry out these goals. So first thing in case of strategy, first is to determine the basic long-term goals and objectives, then allocate resources necessary to carry out these goals. That's the strategy. And in case of policies or statements or a commonly accepted understandings of decision making and are thought oriented guidelines. So it is a kind of thought oriented guidelines, okay, which are in the form of a statement. Therefore regarding and corporate policy cannot be used interchangeably. So second view regarding corporate policy that is given, corporate policy as the process of implementing a strategy. Okay, corporate policy as the process of implementing a strategy. So policy refers to organization, procedures, practices and structures concerned with implementing and executing a strategy. It means that policy it is a part of the implementation and execution implementation and execution part of this strategy. So policy as the decision regarding the future of the organization. Okay, policy as the decisions regarding the future of the organization. So now here I was talking about this second one here given, policy refers to the organization. So second view there it is given, corporate policy as the process of implementing a strategy. So corporate policy can be considered as the process of implementing a strategies, because policy refers to the organization, procedures, practices, structures concerned with implementing and executing a strategy. It means we can say This corporate policy is a part of implementing and executing a strategy. So here policy, okay, here it is the mistake. So policy as the decision re- regarding the future of an organization. So that is it. So the third view it is that the policy is just like a decision regarding the future of the organization. Okay, so these are three views which are given regarding corporate policies. So now next one, move on to the features of corporate policy. So first, as we can see, general statement of principles. So what is this policy? It is just like general statement of principles. So that's the first feature, followed by corporate for the attainment of objectives. So that's here given for the attainment of objectives. Corporate policy, it is just like a general statement of principles. Okay, and the next one, there it is given long-term perspective. So corporate policy has long-term perspective. Then the third given, achievement of objectives. So corporate policy, it is about the achievement of objectives aimed at fulfilling of organizational objectives. Okay, so corporate policy, it is related to the achievement of objectives. So why? Because it is aimed at fulfillment of organizational objectives. Then the next you have the qualitative so next feature of corporate policy, as you can see given, qualitative conditions and general statements. So this is qualitative conditions and general statements. And the fifth feature of corporate policy given, it guide, okay, simply guide for repetitive operations. So whatever repetitive operations are there in the organization, so this corporate policy, it is just like a guide. Then the sixth feature of corporate policy given, hierarchy. So for each set of objectives we have different hierarchy. Okay, then the seventh given, decision making process. So corporate policy is about decision making process. So next eighth given, unified structure. So corporate policies have unified structure. Positive declaration, command to its followers. So that's here given. Now corporate policy, it is positive declaration which command to its followers. So the next point given, determinants of corporate policy. What are the determinants of corporate policy? So the corporate policy of an organization is influenced by various interrelated and interacting factors. So corporate policy is influenced by various interrelated and interacting factors. So what are those factors? These factors can be classified as internal and external factors. It means both internal and external factors influence corporate policy. So the first that is given, internal determinants. So in the internal determinants, as you can see given, first corporate mission. So first given corporate mission, it means according to the corporate mission we designed corporate policy. Then the second given, corporate objectives. So whatever objectives are there, so on the basis of those objectives we design corporate policy. Then corporate resources. Okay, so since there it is the constraint of resource with each and every kind of organization, so that's why the corporate policy should consider the corporate resources. So how much resources can be available for the organization processes. Then the next their internal determinants give management value. So what kind of values the management thing valuable for the organization, so that also influences the corporate policy. Okay, so these were internal determinants of corporate policy. Then the next you have external determinants of corporate policy, or you can say the factors which influence the corporate policy. So external determinants include forces external to the firm. So the first that is given, as you can see here. So first given, industry structure. What kind of industry we have in which the organization is operating, so that affects the corporate policy. Then you have the economic environment, because the economic environment affect the resources available to the organization for its operation. Then the third one, you have the political environment. So political stability or instability also affect the corporate policy, because the corporate policies should be in accordance with the political view of the nation, or you can say to the region in which the organization is operating. So that's why it affects the policy which has been designed for the organization. Then the next, you have the social environment, because social environment also affects. So how? Because people work in the organization, and they are the part of different social structures. So that's why, so their social beliefs affect the corporate policy. Then you have next the technology. So next you have the technology here. The technology also, because with the change in the technology, organizations need to change the processes. If they do not change the processes according to the changes going on in the tech field, then the organization will not be able to compete with its competitors. So that's why it is very critical to consider the technology as a determinant for the corporate policy. Then you have next the scope of corporate policy. So concern, here you have scope of corporate policy. As you can see on your screen, the first that is given, scope of corporate policy. Concerned with corporate policy is concerned with various functional areas like production, human resources, marketing, etc. It means corporate policy, it is concerned with the various functional areas like human resource, marketing, finance, production, or operations. Okay. The second scope given, the overall objectives, procedures, and control are covered in major policies. So corporate policy is also concerned about the objectives, procedures, and the control. Third, given the minor policies. So these were major policies. So that's why here it is underlined that it is the major policy, objective, procedures, and control which are covered in the corporate policies. So these are major policies. Then you have the minor policies. So what are these minor policies? Are concerned with each segment of the organization with the emphasis on details and procedures. Okay, corporate policy is also concerned with each segment of the organization with with emphasis on details and procedures. Then the next you have policy formulation process. So next you have for policy formulation process 2.6. So as you can see on your screen, here it is written, the first thing, environmental analysis. The first step to the formulation process of the policy, it is to analyze the environment, and here the environment, it may be internal or external. It means we should analyze the external and internal environment first, and then the second given, identification of policy alternatives. So what different alternatives are available, so those alternatives should be considered. Okay. Then the third given, evaluation of policy alternatives. So whatever policy alternatives were identified in the second step, so those alternatives should be evaluated on different criteria. So the criteria, it may be the growth, profitability, development, meeting of organizational goals, etc. So these are the criteria which can be used to analyze the policy alternatives. Then you have next the choice of policy. So the various alternatives are compared with each other and the most preferred option is selected. Clear? So the first it was the environmental analysis, so internal and external analysis. Then the second it was the identification of various alternatives. Then the third it is given evaluation of those all identified alternative on the basis of different criteria like growth, profitability, development, meeting of organizational goals, etc. And the fourth step it is to choose the policy, or you can say the choice of the policy. So various alternatives are compared with each other. In case of selection process of the policy, we compare those all alternatives and the most preferred option is selected. So that's all about the policy formulation process. Then the next you have the classification of corporate policy. So how we can classify corporate policy? So the first, so on different bases we can classify corporate policy. The first base, as you can see on the screen that is given, it is based on a scope. Based on this scope, the first it is the basic policy. So basic policies are framed by top management and spell out the basic approach of a company. Second, given general policy framed by middle level management and are more specific. Okay, so now you can see the difference between the basic policy and the general policy. Basic policy it is the that is framed by the top management and that spells out the basic approach, means what approach the company is going to choose. So that's all about the basic policies. And then the general policy it is framed by the middle level management and are more specific. Okay, general policies. Then you have third it is given a specific policies. Specific policies framed by foremen and supervisors and are very specific in nature, because specific policies are used for implementing, or you can say for day-to-day operations of the organization. So that's why specific policies are quite specific in nature. So these are three different kinds of corporate policy based on a scope. Then on the basis of expression, we can classify corporate policy as expressed policy and implied policy. In case of expressed policy, expressed in clear words either orally or written. Okay, so these policies are clearly expressed using words, or you can say using oral or written words. In case of implied policies, here given understood by employees, not expressed by orally or written. It means it is not expressed but it is understood in case of implied policies. Now next, given on the basis of level of management, we have three different kinds of policies. The first that is given top management policies, second middle level management policies, and the third lower level management policies. So these policies are according to the requirement of managers at different levels. For example, top level managers generally require more planning, so that's why the policies for the top level it should be different as compared to whatever it is for the lower level management, because the lower level managers need to implement those policies which are directed by the mid-level managers or the top level managers. So the policies for them, I think it should be different. So that's it. Then the fourth basis given on the basis of on the basis of functional areas. So on the basis of functional areas, so we have production policies, marketing and sales policies, financial policies, personal policies. So on the basis of functional areas, so these are different policies, because so whatever policies are going to be beneficial for the personnel policies, so those policies will not be better for the financial policies. So that's why different kinds of policies will be required for different functional areas. So now next you have the fifth one, on the basis of nature of management. On the basis of nature of management, we have a planning policy, organizing policy. Okay, so the basis here is given nature of management. So what kind of management is there, whether it is planning management, organizing management, means as we know that management, it involves planning, organizing, um, staffing, controlling. So here, that's why here given. So planning policies, organizing policies, actuating policies, and controlling policies. So on the basis of the nature of management, we can classify the corporate policies in these types. Then the next we have importance of corporate policy. Importance of corporate policy. So as you can see on the screen, without, it is written, without a guiding light, it would become very difficult for the businesses to go on, and policies act as a guide and facilitate the manager to direct all the activities toward the same goal. So what here it is given, that without a guiding light, it means there it is the requirement of guiding for the organization and the people working in the organization. So that's why it would become very difficult for the business to go on without any kind of guiding. And here it comes the policy, which acts as guide and facilitate the managers to direct all the activities towards the same goal. So the first given here, to carry out business activities smoothly. So that's why corporate policy it is required to carry out business activities smoothly. Second, it is going to provide a guide and framework for decision making. Third given, provide a direction in which all management activities are focused. Fourth given, deter subordinates to rethink on the day-to-day issues. Fifth given, facilitate evaluation of performance. Sixth given, help in building good public image. And seventh given, provide clear objectives. And eighth given, act as tool for coordination and control. So due to these all reasons, due to these all reasons which I mentioned here, all these 8 reasons, we need corporate policy, or you can say due to these all reasons, corporate policy is very critical. So that's all about the second unit. Thank you all. So if you have any kind of doubt or question, please write to me. I definitely will try to give answer to your questions. So thank you.